Country music star George Strait plays, surprise, a country music star who goes home to the heartland in pure country. It's one of 5 new movies we'll be reviewing this week on Siskel and Ebert. We have a comedy about a sperm bank and a documentary on Hugh Hefner. Those are 2 different films. I'm Gene Siskel of the Chicago Tribune.
And I'm Roger Ebert of the Chicago Sun-Times. Our first movie looks vaguely familiar, maybe because Pure Country is not exactly the first film about a country music superstar who yearns to go back to his roots. Similar material has been covered in movies by Willie Nelson and John Mellencamp, and now it's George Strait's turn. He plays a star named Dusty who believes that his music has grown out of touch with his audiences as he gives one stadium mega production after another. One day, he simply walks away from that special effects extravaganza, leaving his longtime manager, Leslie Ann Warren, to handle the situation.
Are you canceling the show?
No, I'm not canceling the show. There are 25,000 fans out there.
The superstar tries to go back to his country roots, and what good luck he has. He stumbles onto a ranch run by a good-looking cowgirl played by Isabel Glasser.
So how come a beautiful girl like you isn't married?
She's sort of amazed to find out that this stranger has hidden talents.
King of broken hearts doesn't know he's the king. He's trying to forget everything.
And of course, it's the old story. The guy is up there with his electric guitar and his electric horseman suit and his 47-piece band, but he remembers those days with the acoustic guitar. But there's a key scene in Pure Country that gives you the idea George Strait may be protesting too much about how he wants to get rid of the special effects and go back to the days when it was just him and his guitar. On opening night in Vegas, he walks down to the edge of the stage, strums that guitar, and sings a song right to his cowgirl, and we hear maybe 3 acoustical notes before the big Hollywood orchestra sneaks onto the soundtrack, another 47-piece arrangement. But there are some sweet moments in the movie, and Isabel Glasser projects a friendliness that I found really sexy. And there are some good songs, too, although not enough to get a thumbs up from me.
I had the same reaction, a close call. George Strait is very good and very credible in the role, and that's not easy for a country star to do. And second, Isabel Glasser, real presence. These are 2 people that can be used again in other movies, and they'll do a very good job.
Yeah.
But it is kind of a hokey story, and it becomes a coin flip. Who's he gonna go with? Is he gonna go with the manager, or is he gonna go with his fresh new face? And really, I think we know how the coin flip's gonna come out.
And another thing, they played this movie so straight, and there were so many opportunities in it for satire. I thought it was hilarious that when he walks off stage, she just pushes on her boyfriend, gives him a George Strait hat and the beard, and there's so much smoke and so many laser lights around that nobody in the audience knows that they're not listening to George Strait. Well, I thought that was kind of funny, but they play it, you know, as a real serious subplot.
Yeah, also, I think the film is missing a key scene. It is not established clearly enough that Leslie Ann Warren, and to me, that she's not his wife. She's just his manager. Weren't you confused
at the beginning? You are, until her boyfriend turns up.
You got it.
At first you think she's cheating with the boyfriend.
Exactly right. Okay, our next film is called Frozen Assets, and we take a step way down in quality here. This is one of the dumbest comedies I have ever seen.
You're going very easy on it, I say.
So far. Let me try. The first lame joke sets up the whole story as Corbin Burnson is sent from the head office to manage a small-town bank. But what he doesn't know, it's a sperm bank. Now, isn't that a scream? Here's how his misunderstanding goes in the movie as he meets a customer played by Paul Sand.
I'd like you to think of me as an old friend. Don't be shy. My door is open if you need a hand. 2 hands. Hey, I'll get down on all 4s. That's how eager I am to please.
Running the sperm bank is the uptight Shelley Long. She and Burnson feud and fuss in dialogue that's on the level of a failed TV pilot.
I don't even understand why they built a place like this in a hick town like Hobart.
Because hicks like us also
have problems with impotence and sterility and sexual performance. We're just like you.
Thrown in for laughs that never materialize is the character of a local millionaire nutcase played by Larry Miller.
That's your beer you'll score tonight.
Score?
Set.
S-E-X? No, thank you, but I've never really... Alone, sure, but with others, no,
A little of his act goes a long way. I knew Frozen Assets was going to be awful from its opening scene in which we see an executive at the head office jabbering on the phone with underwear stretched over his head. I don't think I can adequately describe to you how unpleasant the remaining 95 minutes were or will be for you. It was as depressing an experience as I've ever had going to the movies. That's 23 years of going to the movies professionally, maybe 6,000, 7,000 pictures.
Well, Gene, I was going to the movies professionally for 2 or 3 years before you were, and there was nothing I saw during that time that even approached this in its abysmal awfulness. This is perhaps the worst comedy ever made. And you know the theory of reincarnation?
They may take the ad out.
That makes it sound good.
They get the second worst comedy ever made.
Okay,
they won't use it.
Not even the worst comedy ever made, just the worst movie ever made. I don't know. You know the theory of reincarnation, where the dues we pay in this lifetime,
yes,
we may get to collect in another lifetime. For having seen this movie, I want months and months and months in a beautiful valley with honey and nectar and zephyr-like breezes. I mean, years, perhaps, would be appropriate.
You know, you have simple tastes. I could...
And a big car.
This is a happy... Yeah. Get something valuable. Zephyr-like breezes. When we come back, a new documentary about Hugh Hefner.
I've been able to pursue a career and a life that most men could only dream of.
Almost 1 million men a month were sharing Hefner's dream of the good life. He decided he was ready to start living it himself. He became Mr. Playboy.
You're hearing there James Coburn sounding suitably impressed as he chronicles the life and times of Hugh Hefner. Now, some people admire Hefner and others hate him, but I think that when the history of 20th century social change is written, his Playboy may turn out to have been the most influential magazine of our times in terms of the change that it actually brought into people's lives. A new documentary named Hugh Hefner, Once Upon a Time, records Hefner's life from his beginning as the son of devout Methodists in Chicago to his emergence as the definitive swinging bachelor playboy. I was especially interested in the archival material from his earliest days, which indicates that in one sense or another, Hefner was publishing Playboy almost from the cradle.
As editor of the College Humor magazine, he introduced a new feature he called Co-Ed of the Month.
One of the keys to Hefner's image was the famous Playboy Mansion, first in Chicago, then in Los Angeles, where the parties never seemed to stop.
I built a swimming pool inside with an underwater bar, and that was the house with the rotating, vibrating bed. And it was a house without any secret panels, but I added some because I thought it reminded me of the old houses in the Boris Karloff movies that I'd seen when I was a boy.
There was always a strong moralistic streak in Hefner, who wrote his almost endless Playboy philosophy in response to those who attacked his magazine.
You don't seem to understand that the deeds that men are being moved to by Playboy and the general thrust of our move towards a less repressive society is a healthier attitude towards sex.
Playboy has been around almost 40 years now, and Hefner has settled down. In fact, the documentary concludes with idyllic footage of the domestic scene at the mansion, where Hef and his second wife, Playmate of the Year, Kimberly Conrad, are raising their 2 young children. Hugh Hefner, Once Upon a Time, does cover some of the darker chapters of the Playboy saga, including the murder of Playmate Dorothy Stratton and the suicide of Hefner's own trusted assistant. But basically, this is an authorized biography, Hefner's own statement about where he came from and who he is and what he thinks it all means. I found it very interesting on that level as a personal statement from a man who has had a significant impact on his time.
Well, I found it fascinating, too, and I think that there was sort of a filmmaker's approach to this material, and it has to do with how the film opens and how it closes. And that is, it opens with him in this family where, this uptight family, where kissing is forbidden because it's a way of communicating disease.
Germs, yeah.
So that keeps people apart. And then he gets rejected in high school, I think it is, or at college he gets rejected.
High school.
And he wants to escape from the real world. So he has this idea of a magazine that he started early on. And in this world that he creates, boys, young boys, adolescents like himself, can have the date they want at a safe distance. It seems so logical. And then, jumping ahead to the end of the movie, where he's playing on the mansion, we see him playing with this kid. We see a warmer, more touchy-feely family. And so the film, I think, in the most amazing life to pick, Hugh Hefner, the film argues for a warmer, closer, more hands-on family.
It's a movie in favor of family values, and it stars the man who had the longest adolescence in history, 45 years. To me, the key is, at the beginning, when he reinvents himself in high school as Hef and starts drawing cartoons and so forth, he creates this image of himself as the kid who, as he says, threw all the parties, had all the fun, set up all the games, and he continued to do that for a lot of people for a very long time, until finally he realized it was time for him to start leading his own life. It's very interesting in the movie that he never really participated in his own parties. They said there was always a great buffet, but Hefner never ate.
The other thing I think it shows us, and I think we know this to be true from our own experience, a personality that is blunted in some way or suffers some kind of trauma or shock early on will spin itself out into an amazing web. And so it was this early life of him that causes this grand life with, you know, peaks and valleys.
The empire, yeah.
If he hadn't had the parents that he had, he would have he would have been a reader, not a publisher.
Okay, coming up next, Kevin Kline falls under the spell of his fast-talking new neighbor in Consenting Adults.
Who cares if we get caught? Big deal.
You two have really got it made. A nice home, a nice business, beautiful, talented daughter, a great marriage. I'm very lucky.
That's Kevin Kline and Kevin Spacey as next-door neighbors who will become involved in a murderous wife-swapping drama in Consenting Adults, a depressing thriller in the style of these omnipresent killer-next-door movies that we're getting so often these days. In Consenting Adults, it's Kevin Spacey as a slick slimeball who teases Kevin Kline about his inhibitions.
You're full of fear. Your life is choked. You write jingles when you'd rather be doing albums. You do it for money, but you're always in debt. You want to make love to my wife, but you're afraid you'll get caught. This is how you die, step by step. These little things you deny yourself.
How long have you been married? 13?
14 years.
Kevin Kline is so intrigued that he finds himself in a discussion about extramarital affairs with Spacey's wife, played by Rebecca Miller.
Have you been faithful all those years?
Through a series of tricks, Kevin Kline finds himself in jail accused of murder. His wife, Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio, thinks he's guilty.
Who was pushing you to kill her? Are you insane?
I didn't kill her.
I called Consenting Adults depressing, and in part, that's because it comes at the end of a long line of similar Sleeping with the Enemy movies. I hope this trend has really played itself out. These films are so mean-spirited, and when the characters aren't fresh or emotionally deep, as they are not in Consenting Adults, what you're left with are just torn-apart families beating the pulp out of one another. Consenting Adults is the kind of picture that makes the claim against Hollywood lacking family values seem entirely appropriate.
Oh, come on, Gene. I hope you're not...
I'm not turning, Roger.
Turn into some kind of...
I'm not going to turn into Roger, and I will like a good one.
This is a good movie. This is a good thriller. It's well put together. The characters do have humor. The entire movie is a comedy. I don't see how you missed that.
I didn't laugh.
And
I did.
The characters are very interesting in the way that they psychologically play with one another. What Spacey does to Kline in this movie by leading him on and playing to his weak points and luring him into this trap and seducing him with his own guilty conscience is really interesting. This is so much better than a lot of those other kill the person next door type of movies that I'm surprised and disappointed in here with the family values.
No, I am only saying that because I was depressed by it, and so I can understand other people having that reaction.
Yeah, but let me might as well say, because there's another critic that's going around talking about family values. It's demagoguery. A movie is good or a movie is bad. A movie has values that we either agree with or don't agree with, and that's what it's about.
Just trying to,
not some censorship at the factory gate.
I'm not trying to censor it. I'm saying write a better character. For example, I think I have a solution to make this film much better. And that is have the Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio character be more manipulative than she is. That would have really sent, I think, the audience to the
roof. You could make it better, but it doesn't mean that it's bad.
I thought it was. I was depressed.
When we come back, Reservoir Dogs, a movie about tough guys with Lawrence Tierney and Harvey Keitel.
There's two ways you can go on this job. My way or the highway.
called Reservoir Dogs and starring a cast full of veteran tough guys who pull a stick-up that goes very wrong. The movie stars one of the legendary bad guys of the movies, Lawrence Tierney, as the ringleader who assembles a crowd of criminals who don't know one another and then assigns them all names based on colors. Some of them don't like their names much.
How about if I'm Mr. Purple? That sounds good to me. I'll be Mr. Purple.
You're not Mr. Purple. Some guy has some other job as Mr. Purple. You're Mr. Pink.
The robbery, which takes place mostly off-screen, is a botched job, and Harvey Keitel ends up driving the badly wounded Tim Roth back to their rendezvous.
Joe's gonna get you a doctor. The doctor's gonna fix you up, and you're gonna be okay.
As the crooks gather, they realize that the whole caper has gone wrong very badly, and what was supposed to be a victory celebration turns into blood and panic.
What are we on a playground here, huh? Am I the only professional? You said yourself you thought about taking him out.
Yeah, I did, okay? I did. But that was then. Right now, this guy is the only one I completely trust.
Some of the robbery scenes are shown in flashback, including this one where the wounded getaway driver is the movie's writer and director, Quentin Tarantino.
You're not blind. You just got blood in your eyes, all right?
On the basis of Reservoir Dogs, Tarantino there obviously has talent and a gift for using actors, but I was never really sure what he thought the point of this movie was. There are too many scenes of behavior and no scenes of insight, and as the guys assemble back at the warehouse, there's too much talk from characters who should really be unconscious or mad with pain instead of giving us all that dialogue. I liked the movie as far as it went. I wanted it to go further and try more.
I had the same reaction, Roger. I thought it was a lot of an exercise in style. But then I got that really quick. I mean, I understand what he's trying to do here, which is to show things in crime movies that crime movies don't show. For example, the sloppiness, the humor. But we get that within 15 minutes, and then the movie doesn't have anything more to say.
There is one scene in the movie that has a life of its own, and that's when Michael Madsen is dancing around and torturing that poor cop who's tied to the chair. And it's a very, very violent scene. In fact, this whole movie is very violent.
Yes.
But I felt that a scene like that was using action instead of just all of this dialogue. The rest of the movie is empty.
It is empty, and that's the problem. It isn't about anything, and I know that style is very important, and I know that other crime films can be stodgy, and this can seem fresh by itself, but basically, you get the point real quickly, and there's nothing more to say.
Okay, our video pick of the week is next. A superb film that dramatizes one of the frightening episodes in the world of the Playboy Empire.
Now it's time for our video pick of the week, and as a companion piece to the Hugh Hefner documentary we praised earlier on this show, I'd like to recommend a darker film, Star 80, directed by the late great Bob Fosse. It's a docudrama based on the sad story of murdered Playboy playmate Dorothy Stratton. In his documentary, Hugh Hefner says that her Playboy experience was irrelevant to her murder, that she was simply a victim of a love triangle involving director Peter Bogdanovich and Stratton's creepy hustler husband, Paul Snider, who ultimately killed her and then killed himself. That may be true, but director Fosse sees a world of artifice and full glamour as partially responsible for the unhinging of Snider's unstable personality.
Do you know who reads Playboy?
No, tell me.
Movie producers, directors, agents, TV people. The people who produce Charlie's Angels read Playboy. I have this feeling about Dorothy, this hunch that she's going to be a big star in the movies or on TV, I don't know, but a really big star.
Eric Roberts is absolutely brilliant as Paul Snider. It's very difficult to make us care at all about such a creep, and it's one of the best performances I've ever seen. Mariel Hemingway plays Dorothy Stratton, and here is a true-life thriller that is as mesmerizing as any of the great crime films in film history. Star 80 is rated R. It is extremely violent and recommended only for adults. Now let's recap the movies we reviewed on this show. 2 thumbs down for Pure Country, which features a hokey story but strong performances by George Strait and Isabel Glasser. We'd like to see them in other movies. 2 more thumbs down, way down, for Frozen Assets. It's one of the worst comedies ever made. Congratulations to all involved. 2 thumbs up for Hugh Hefner, Once Upon a Time, a fascinating, oddly moralistic study of the founder of the Playboy Empire. A split vote on Consenting Adults. Roger enjoyed the wife-swapping thriller. I found it depressing. 2 thumbs down for Reservoir Dogs, a stylish but empty crime films. So the Hefner documentary is the one we like the most.
That's opening
in a week.
Yeah, that's opening in big cities and then moving out across the country.
Yeah.
And I think you missed the boat on Consenting Adults. I think it is entertaining and surprising. Although I agree with you that if Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio had also been in on the plot, it would have provided an interesting twist.
Then it would have got a thumbs up.
That's it for this week. Next week, a special show on Robert Redford, who has been surprising Hollywood for 30 years and is still a star as an actor and as a director. That's next week, and until then, the balcony is closed.
It's America's favorite jelly bean, Jelly Belly, now appearing at theaters and video stores with good taste. Jelly Belly beans, try them, you'll love them. Corsedin for use at the first sign of a cold or flu. It'll relieve all your major symptoms fast and help keep them from getting worse. Corsedin D, the sooner the better. Advanced Formula Centrum with more vitamins and minerals, including beta-carotene, than any leading brand. Centrum, more complete from A to zinc. To give your dog a delicious meaty taste and variety of flavors, please don't bother the butcher. Try new Butcher's Blend and Butcher's Burger brand dog foods.